And through that time, that's when I really discovered the true power of cannabis, because I was able to connect with my father in ways that I had never connected with him before. My dad had just got finished up bringing his brother every week for 3 years to Dana-Farber in Boston for radiation and chemotherapy. And he had watched what this had done to him. And so by the time he got diagnosed, he was like, fuck that. I got a great head of hair. I'm going out with style. I'm not going to change my lifestyle. This is who I am. So I was like, okay. So I had a choice in that moment. Do I love my dad for the person he is, that's raised me amazing alongside my mother? Or do I try to change him into the version of him that I think he quote unquote should be so that I can selfishly have him around longer? Right. And so I had that choice to make, and very similar to the LSD experience, I realized, dude, there's really only one choice. And if you choose the other one, you're going to be in a world of shit of, trauma and things like that for years to come. If it shouldn't have happened this way, coulda, shoulda, woulda, all this stuff. So I chose to do the first one, which was love him for who he was and just support him in any way that he needed support. And so after a couple of weeks, he started experiencing some deep pain. And so I started talking to him like, Dad, because at this point, still not interacting with cannabis. I was like, Dad, we're growing. Let's at least make our next harvest into RSO and start giving it to you. At best, maybe we can cure your cancer, right? But at least we can numb some of this pain out. So at first he was like, no, but after a while he was like, okay, let's do it. So here's my dad, who's never interacted with cannabis since like the 80s anyway. And now I'm giving him the strongest version of cannabis on planet Earth. Right. So I would sit with him when he was going through the experiences to make sure that he had his questions answered and all this stuff. And through that time, that's when I really discovered the true power of cannabis, because I was able to connect with my father in ways that I had never connected with him before. And I'm an only child, right? My mother and father are both amazing. And they really gave me the perfect childhood. We're all very close. And, I would go to breakfast with my dad, car shows. We hung out all the time. So this was like shocking to me that I was hearing stories that he had never told me before. We were taking the heaviness off of subjects like death, where he'd be like, hey, what do you think happens when you die? And it would be like this fun, exciting subject of like, I don't know. And viewing it more as a graduation than an ending, right? And so then I got to watch him have closure with my mother, with me, with his grandchildren, with his other children, and just with his experience of life. And so not only that, but, I can't say 100% that I know this was cannabis, but the doctors gave him 2 months to live. He had small cell carcinoma, very fast and very aggressive. And he ended up surviving an extra year past that date. And so I don't know if I would have gotten that time with my dad if it weren't for cannabis. So I am forever grateful to this plant. But when I realized the depth to what that allowed me to do for closure, when I realized wow, this extra time with my father and being able to connect with him with cannabis allowed me to process and grieve his death before he even passed. And now it's not like I don't wish he was still here, but I see that happening for me, because when my father passed, it really put a fire under my ass and allowed me to realize I'm not going to be here forever. So what am I going to do with the time here? And so also it allowed me to realize that, hey, my father might not be here physically, but he's still all around me. And again, I can't prove this objectively, but it's what I choose to believe because it makes my experience of life more great and grand in nature. And so coming out of that experience, I realized, wow, I want to do this for my life. And then I got into the industry, worked there for 5 years with over 5,000 patients, helped them with all things holistic health. And then at a certain point, our business got taken over by a corporation. It started smelling like office supplies in there. And I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. And then through a series of hilarious other events, Highly Optimized was born. And that's where Cannabis Cannabis and everything got to. But it's really been the best and most fun journey, full of challenges and full of, all the things that starting your own business has been. But I wake up so fucking fulfilled every day. And every single time I run one of these classes and people are like, holy shit, they're just getting their mind blown. And it's not from what I'm doing, it's from what they're discovering about themselves and their own journeys. And they're realizing, not only am I getting value from this program, but I'm also realizing oh my God, I am powerful. That realization to me is what I live for, right? When people come to the call and they're like, I know I can do anything I want in life now. Boom. That's I just get smitten over that. And so that's why cannabis, right? That's how I got into this.
Yeah. No, I mean, having an experience like that where cannabis, it sounds like gave your dad just a much more enjoyable, livable last year of his life. And in a way, the way you describe it, it sounds like he was even thriving during that period, even if his body was physically deteriorating. That's amazing, because I I think about death more and more for myself, but also for my parents, because they're getting in their mid upper 60s. I don't want to see them suffer in the last stage of their life on the way out. You know, part of the reason why I'm working hard now is so that I'm able to have the freedom to take a step back, and whenever that time is where they'll need me and my brothers to step in on a daily basis, that they are able to go through that process. So hearing about what you were able to do with your dad and have, you know, cannabis be a big part of that, you know, that's something that you can't put a value on. Like having someone being able to talk openly about death and to have some sense of comfort when they're literally at the door of death. I can't imagine the conversations you and your dad were having and the experiences just sitting there, because normally you'd be, you know, at a hospital bed, maybe your dad's unconscious, you're just kind of just wasting away the last 6 to 12 months of your life. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry to hear about your dad's passing, but it sounds like he had a great stage passing through into, you know, whatever lies after.
Yeah, man. You know, and thank you for that as well. And, you know, for me, it was like, you know, my dad told me, he was like, listen, I don't want to die in a fucking hospital bed. I want to die at home, the place I know, the place I love, with the people I love. And I was like, okay. So there was, you know, periods, especially near the end, that were really challenging about that, you know, because he had brain cancer. And so, and he also, it didn't start in his brain, but it metastasized, because my dad was one of those people who was like, no, nothing's wrong with me, when like he was having these fits for a while. He was a 3-pack a day cigarette smoker. And again, he was my dad, but, you know, he had his things, right? And so, you know, he had this thing going on where it was almost like pleurisy for like a year before he got diagnosed, where all of a sudden we'd be talking and he'd just double over in pain. And I'd be like, what's that? He's like, nothing. I went to the doctor. It's fine. And I'm like, that's not fucking fine. So by the time they figured it out, it metastasized a lot. And so he had frontal lobe cancer. So there was a lot of time where, you know, there was just like periods where I was like, oh, is that really my father? Is it not? You know, there was like, and of course I knew it was, but like I had to like be weary, you know, of like, because I knew that he knew things were going on. Like when shit really got weird was one day he walked down and asked me where the bathroom was. And I knew at that point, I was like, uh-oh, that's not good. And about an hour later, he had a grand mal seizure. And the doctors actually thought he was going to die. They prepared my mother and I, like, okay, say your goodbyes. That's it. Right. And so I was actually, you know, of course I was upset, but I was kind of like, you know what? If that's the end, that's fine with me, because, you know, it was quick. You know, he was completely his normal self up to when that happened. But after about a week of him being in a coma, induced coma, they all of a sudden brought us in one day and we're like, okay, so we're going to wake him up. He should be fine. And I was like, wait, what? What's happening here? And so when he came out of it, he was still himself, but he was a little off. And he would have moments of complete clarity, but it started getting worse and worse. And so by the end, you know, I was very grateful that we were able to take care of him. There was some really sketchy moments, you know, of like waking up and, you know, the stove being on all night and, you know, my mother and I having to be nocturnal and take care of him. So it was definitely a challenging period. But during that period, you know, the cannabis was the times in which, you know, he was actually able to like laugh and have joy. And, you know, I could sit with him and watch movies, because that was like one of our rituals. You know, he loved movies. I mean, the stack at my parents' house of DVDs is fucking crazy, you know, from when he used to buy DVDs every week. So, you know, it was like those times where I realized like, okay, it just took the severity off of it a lot, where I was able to say like, you know what, this is your physical body. Yeah, they're going to break down over time, but this isn't who you truly are, right? Like, you know, who you are is deeper than that. And so because I had those realizations from different psychedelic experiences and also cannabis, I was able to like almost not look at it like, oh, my father's dying. It's like, oh, my father's physical body is dying. And yes, I can be upset about that. And I can feel the weight of that being a human and allowing myself to be human. But a deeper part of me knew like, hey, this is okay, right? Like this is part of life. It's okay. And you know what? who he truly is infinite, and that infinity is around me at all points in time. And it was really funny too, because, and I don't know if anyone listening or if even you, like if you've had anyone close, like really close, pass away, you know, it was like my father and I had a lot of rituals. Like I was saying, like going to breakfast was one of our biggest rituals. You know, it always wake me up at like these ridiculously early hours when I was a teenager and be like, let's go to breakfast. I'd be like, fuck, Dad, I was up till 3 a.m. playing video games. But I'm so grateful that I said yes most times that he woke me up. But he would always get Eggs Benedict when we went out. And I fucking would always look at it and be like, ugh, it looks gross. Right after he passed, I went to breakfast with a bunch of my friends about, I don't know, a week or two after. And we went to the same spot that my dad and I usually went, right up the street. And I get there and I'm looking at the menu and I'm just like, I want Eggs Benedict. And it wasn't like, oh, logically, I'm going to get Eggs Benedict because it's going to remind me of my dad. Like, no, I was craving something that I had never had before. And I was like, that's fucking weird. Right. So I get it. I fucking love it. And you can corroborate this with my girlfriend. I get Eggs Benedict all the time when I go out now. It's like my favorite thing. And so then my dad, when he got ice cream, would always get a strawberry sundae with chocolate ice cream, whipped cream, and nuts. Now, I eat ice cream a lot, but like the couple times I do a year, I'll always get a strawberry sundae with chocolate ice cream, whipped cream, and nuts. No fucking clue. Never got one before. And someone could argue, oh, it's just because your subconscious is wanting to remind you of your dad. I don't know, but it's fucking cool because those are, to me, I take those as signs that if we all are walking each other home, like Ram Dass says, that's like my father being able to live vicariously through me. And he always said that to me. He's like, I still feel 16 up here. You know, I'm living vicariously through you. So part of what I do in my life and what motivates me in those times that I'm feeling down or whatever is like, I got to give my dad a fucking cool show, you know, and all my relatives that have passed away. And so that's one of the things that motivates me every day, along with empowering people to realize like, hey, you're more powerful than you've been told you are. Go fucking enjoy it, you know?